Good morning, my YouTube viewers. Crystal here. I'm here this morning because I wanted to give you a code review for Recognize the Digit competition in Kaggle. And so this isn't my own code. I got this code from this website right here. You can see it, the code that I got it from. It was a lady, I believe, wrote the code, and she asked if you liked her coding, if it was beneficial, would you please give her an upvote? And so I gave her an upvote because I copied the code into my notebook. I didn't copy her notebook, but I just copied the code into my notebook and ran the code, and it worked. Ran the code and submitted it on Kaggle, and it worked, and I was so pleased. Basically, what we have is we have a problem where people submit on Kaggle, and they submit on YouTube, and they submit on internet sites in general code that doesn't work. And so you're studying, you're trying to learn how to do things, and so you find some code and you try to study the code and use the code, and the code doesn't work. And then me personally, I end up trying to troubleshoot the code to try to find out where the code is faulty so I can get the code to work. And I'm spending a lot of time troubleshooting faulty code. So it was quite pleasant for me to be able to use some code that did work and gave me a really high score of 99.48%. And so I did give this lady an upvote. It's not my work, so I can't say it's my work. So the only thing I can do is call it a code review. So the first thing I did was I input the libraries. So you can see all the libraries that I input. And then I input the Keras libraries. I imported the files on Kaggle. I read the files on Kaggle. I looked at the train file, so I wanted to see what was in the train file. And you'll see that the train file does not have an image ID. And we're going to have to create an image ID when we submit our file to Kaggle. Looked at train info, and you can see that it was 42,000 entries. And it says 785 entries. That was because it had 28 times 28 columns. So we looked at the test file. The test file does not have a label, so the label is going to have to be added to this file, to the submission file, and an image ID is also going to have to be added to a submission file as well. Now, I personally, when I was doing my work, what I did was I took the test index and I added one to that. But as we do this code review, we will see how this lady dealt with the image ID. I wanted to see the sample sub because the sample sub tells you the format that you have to submit your submission in, and you have to have an image ID and you have to have a label. And as you can see, the image ID starts with 1, but your index starts with 0. So the way that I personally dealt with that was I just added 1 to the index to create the image ID. So you set up your train Y. So your train Y is label, and you set up your train X, and the train X is everything except the label. You set up your G, and then you plotted train Y, which was the label. And so since we're dealing with digits, each number had so many occurrences, and it's just telling you how many occurrences each number had. So then you set up train Y into categories. You set up train X, and they reshaped train X to be 28 by 28. And then you set up text, and they reshaped that to be 28 by 28. So you can see your train X shape is 42,000 rows by 28 by 28, and then 1. Your model is sequential, and sequential is part of the Keras library to deal with deep learning. And I'll say it took me an hour to actually run this program and an hour to save it. So I tried to run it last night and it wouldn't run. So I got up at 5 o'clock this morning and I ran it again, and I didn't count exactly how long it took to run the program, but it took a good hour to run the program, and then it took a good hour to save the program so I could submit it. So here we set up all our models, and so Keras is something that I'm going to have to study and learn, because as you get into deep learning, you have to know Keras. So unfortunately, I don't know Keras that well, but I'm intending to learn it so I can enter these paid competitions with Kaggle. You set up your optimizer, and then you compile your model. You set up your learning rate reduction. You set up DataGen, image data generator. You fit your model, and this coding here, it ran like 30 epochs, and it took a good hour to run 30 epochs. And obviously, if I'm going to be doing deep learning, I'm going to have to get a more powerful computer, because my netbook certainly wouldn't be able to do this because it's old. I got it in 2014 when I left my previous employer. And then I'm using a Chromebook now, and it crashes on me a lot because it just doesn't have the capability to do massive amounts of computing. So I'm going to have to get a more powerful computer to work on this deep learning. That will be my next expense. I set up YPRED, which that's to predict the model. And here's your YPRED values here. So they put YPRED into an array. So you've got YPRED again in an array. And so now you've got your YPRED final. And basically what they do is they put your YPRED into a for loop. And then you've got your results. Your results actually go into a column called label. And then you've got your submission. So how they did the submission was she called the image ID PD series range 1 to 28,001, and she named it image ID. Results axis equals 1. And then she added that to a file called digitmnist.csv. So she didn't do it the easy way. The easy way was just to do train.index plus 1. She did it a more complicated way, like PD series range 1, 28,001, name equals image ID, and then she did results, and then axis.1. But I'm not going to test and see if my way works just as well, because it takes an hour to run the program and an hour to save the program. So I'm not going to do it. And then what I did was I wanted to actually see the file. And so here you can see the file, the submission file. And this is what was actually submitted to Kaggle. And we got a score of 99.482%, which is very good. It was almost 100%. And it's very good. It's very nice to use some code that actually works, because I've got so much code. I got code off Jason Brownlee's site, code from people who also use Kaggle, and code from the YouTube, and then just code from the internet in general that didn't work. And I would spend a lot of time trying to troubleshoot it and try to figure out why it wasn't working. And it was so nice just to be able to use some code that actually works. So this is the site here that I got it from, and I did give this code an upvote, and maybe you should too. So that concludes it for my video. And if you like my video, please like, subscribe, and share. Please let me know what you think about my videos. And thank you so much for watching my video. And I look forward to making the next one for you.